Alright, let me lay it out for you. Nobody ever spills the tea about what happens when you finally get together with your academic rival and secret crush. The love of your damn life. Spoiler alert, it's instantly, catastrophically awkward. And not in the this is the worst kind of way, but more like, I've spent the last 2 years crafting this entire persona around pretending I don't have a massive crush on you, and now I'm suddenly allowed to have feelings. But what the hell do I do with my hands? It had been a mere 4 days since that legendary library kiss, and Yuna and I were texting every single day, totally not new, right? But hold on a second, because now those texts were like a whole new level of adorable. We had good morning texts, I saw this book and thought of you texts, and then there was that one text at 11 p.m. that simply said hi. I swear I stared at it for 6 freaking minutes before I managed to type back hi, and then we just sat there in this awkward silence for another 10 minutes, which somehow felt like the most romantic moment of my entire existence. Like, are you kidding me? Sumin, my bestie, was practically losing her damn mind with joy. She had even created a secret contact name for Yuna in her phone that I was absolutely forbidden to see. But let me tell you, based on the way she grinned every time that name popped up, I was definitely not asking any questions. Our first official date? Oh boy, it was a glorious disaster. A wonderfully chaotic, perfect disaster. Yuna had this brilliant idea to hit up the campus botanical garden on a Saturday afternoon. Super romantic, right? She had obviously put a ton of thought into it. I later discovered that meant she'd meticulously researched the garden's visiting hours, checked the weather forecast like 3 days in advance, and even jotted down a list of conversation topics in her notebook, just in case we hit a lull. I mean, come on, how freaking adorable is that? As for me, I showed up a whopping 12 minutes late because I changed my outfit 5 times, dropped an earring down the sink drain, like seriously, had a 4-minute existential debate with myself in the mirror. And then I speed walked across campus so fast that I arrived slightly out of breath, my 4-seat puff looking like it was about to take off in a different direction. And there was Yuna, waiting by the garden entrance in this stunning pale blue dress and white cardigan, her mechanical pencil nowhere in sight for once. Her hair was perfectly straight, hands clasped in front of her, looking all composed and ready to conquer the world. What the hell was I thinking? How did I get so lucky? She glanced at my utterly chaotic puff and said, "You ran." I huffed back, breathless. I walked briskly. "Thank you very much." Without missing a beat, she reached up, her hands a flurry of grace, and meticulously straightened my puff like she was crafting a masterpiece. After a moment of careful adjustments, she stepped back, giving me a small, satisfied nod as if she had just conquered Mount Everest. In that instant, my brain short-circuited and I forgot how to utter a single word. She tilted her head, a playful smirk dancing on her lips, and said, "Better, shall we?" And just like that, we strolled through the botanical garden, side by side, and let me tell you, it was a delightful mix of enchanting and nerve-wracking, because this was real, like, heart-pounding butterflies in my moist stomach. A real date with Yuna, the one I was hopelessly, undeniably in love with. The girl who had kissed me in the library just 4 days ago, like she had been waiting an eternity to do it. Which, as it turned out, she actually had. We wandered into the rose section and she paused, completely captivated, reading every single plaque like they were the secrets of the universe. I stood there, mesmerized, forgetting I even existed in this world. She caught me in my daze and said, "You're not reading the plaques." I grinned and replied, "I'm looking at something way better." She turned back to the roses, her voice soft as silk, that was smooth. Her ears flushed the cutest shade of pink. I had made Choi Yuna's ears blush. I was going to think about that glorious moment for the rest of my days. We found a cozy bench near the fountain, sitting close enough that our knees almost touched. She pulled out 2 cans of coffee from her bag because she had remembered my absolute favorite brand. I looked at those 2 little cans and thought, damn, I'm going to marry this woman someday. Of course, I didn't say that out loud. Instead, I said, you remembered my order. She gazed straight ahead at the fountain, her voice filled with warmth. I remember everything about you. The fountain was stunning, but honestly, I didn't even see it once. On our walk back, she reached over and took my hand, no fanfare. No big moment, just slipped her fingers through mine like it was the most natural thing in the world. It felt like we had been doing this forever. I glanced down at our intertwined hands and then up at her profile. Her jawline sharp and beautiful, her hair glistening in the afternoon light. She said, still gazing ahead, stop staring. I shot back, absolutely not. She squeezed my hand and I squeezed back, my heart doing somersaults. When I got back to my dorm, Semen was sitting on the floor against the door, munching on chips like she had been there for ages, radiating the energy of someone who was definitely in the know. She looked up, her eyes sparkling with mischief, and asked, that good, huh? I slid down the wall and plopped beside her, and without even asking, she passed me the chips like it was a sacred ritual. I said, Suman. She replied, yeah. I confessed, I think I'm the happiest I've ever been. She rested her head on my shoulder and said, I know. I've known for 4 months. You're the last one to figure it out, as always. And in a moment of pure camaraderie, I stole all her chips. She let me. Junior year wrapped up, and just like that, senior year exploded into our lives. And there we were, Yuna and I, utterly and ridiculously head over heels in love. I mean, I say ridiculously because our friend Suman had the audacity to tell us, like, at least 3 times that we were beyond unbearable to be around. But she meant it as a compliment. How the hell does that even work? Of course, the competition was still alive and kicking, but now it was like an Olympic sport with commentary. She'd slide a paper with a grade that could only be described as astronomical across the library table. Her face as calm as a Zen master, and I'd tossed it back with a cheeky note that read, show off. She'd scribble back, you love it, and damn it. She was completely right, even if I'd never, ever admit it. Senior year brought with it a future that was suddenly screaming at us from a distance no one had bothered to warn me about. Yuna had been accepted into a graduate literature program, a spectacular one, mind you, 3 cities away. She dropped the news over dinner at our favorite little off-campus cafe. The cozy one, where we always claimed our corner booth, hands wrapped around our mugs like it was a sacred ritual. I got the acceptance letter this morning, she said, her eyes sparkling like fireworks. I could tell right away that this was monumental news. She had that look, the one that said, this matters way too much for me to be casual about it. I leaned in and said, spill it, and she did. My heart swelled with pride so intensely that it felt like it might burst right out of my chest. Yuna, that's absolutely incredible. That program is nothing short of legendary. You've worked your damn ass off for this. She glanced down at her mug almost as if it held the weight of the world. It's 3 cities away, she said, the words hanging in the air like an ominous cloud. The cafe was warm and inviting, someone's playlist providing the perfect backdrop. Everything was just as it always was, except for this new, huge, terrifying difference. How long is the program? I asked, my voice tinged with a mix of excitement and dread. 2 years, she replied. 2 years. 3 cities. I let that sink in for a moment, like a stone dropped into a still pond, sending ripples everywhere. Here's the kicker about loving someone like Yuna. She doesn't ask for anything. Nope, she just lays down the facts and waits to see how you react. 3 cities away, she said. And then she waited like she was handing me a puzzle with missing pieces. I reached across the table and covered her hand with mine, feeling a rush of warmth. When do you leave? I asked, my heart pounding like a drum. She looked up, her eyes wide. Because I need to know how many of these corner booth dinners we can squeeze in before then. Something in her expression shifted, like a balloon slowly deflating. August, she whispered. I did the math. 4 months. Okay, we'll pack in as many of these dinners as we can, and then we'll figure out the rest, I declared, trying to sound brave. It won't be easy, she cautioned. Yuna, come on! You're the one who memorized my coffee order, fixed my hair on our first date, walked into me on purpose in a hallway, and kissed me in a library after 2 years of being too damn proud to say anything. Easy has never been our thing. She fell silent for what felt like an eternity, and then, in the softest voice, she said, I love you. Whoa! She had never said it before, not like that, not out loud. I just stared at her, completely dumbfounded. She looked mildly terrified, and honestly, I felt a little terrified myself. I love you too, I finally managed to say. I've loved you since that time you debated narrative structure in Professor Lim's class and refused to sit down until he acknowledged your point. He was wrong, she shot back. Absolutely 100% wrong, I agreed. And then she laughed, the kind of laugh that made her head tilt back and lit up the whole room. We stayed in that booth until the cafe closed, the staff politely nudging us out the door like we were the last 2 people on Earth. Fast forward 4 months later, and there I was, standing in a parking lot outside her new apartment, 3 cities away, hugging her for what felt like a lifetime. Neither of us said a word, because everything that needed to be said had already been said. She pulled back and fixed my hair, of course, because that's just her style. I'll call you tonight, she said, and I shot back, you better. She got in her car and I watched it disappear until it was just a speck in the distance. Then I plopped down in my own car and called Sumin. She picked up on the first ring, her voice full of energy. I'm already on my way to yours with food. I love you, I said, my heart still racing. I know. I love you too. And I also love Yuna, which is why I'm not telling you to break up with her and move on like some lesser best friend would do. I laughed through my tears, a mix of joy and sorrow. She showed up 20 minutes later with noodles in hand, and we spent the whole night together just like always. 2 years of long-distance love with Choi Yuna was a whirlwind of epic proportions. Picture this. Weekly video calls that started as a simple hour and ballooned into 3-hour marathons of laughter and longing. We curated a playlist together that somehow captured every emotional twist and turn of our relationship, like a soundtrack to our own romantic movie. And oh, the packages. They came pouring in, mostly books, but sometimes snacks. And there was even that one time she sent me a tiny succulent that she named after me. I had no idea it was coming, but there it was on my doorstep with a cheeky little card saying, she needs direct sunlight and someone to talk to. Much like her namesake. Damn. I kept that card like it was gold, tucked away in my desk drawer. You better believe I talked to that succulent. But that's a secret between us. Then came the moment of truth. She wrapped up her graduate program on a Thursday in May, and I drove through 3 damn cities like a love-struck maniac just to be there. Because this was not a moment for a video call. I stood in the back of that graduation hall, my heart racing as I watched her stride across the stage in her glorious regalia, standing tall and proud, receiving her degree with both hands like a total boss. I couldn't help but think back to our first year, when that fierce girl stood up and refused to sit down until her voice was heard. I realized I had been head over heels in love with her long before I even knew what love was. After the ceremony, she spotted me in the crowd and walked straight over, kissing me in front of everyone, including her bewildered graduate advisor and her classmates, who only knew me as the mysterious girlfriend from the phone screen. Talk about bold moves from the usually shy Choi Yuna. When I mentioned how bold she was, she shot back. I've been waiting 2 years to do that in person. I have no patience left. Can you believe it? We went to dinner where she'd casually dropped the bombshell that she'd then offered a teaching position at our university. She was coming home. I might have shed a tear or two in the restaurant, just a tiny waterfall, really. Yuna pretended not to notice and handed me a napkin without a word, which, let me tell you, was the most tender gesture ever. Fast forward to August, she moved in, and we got an apartment together because after 2 years of navigating 3 cities, I was done with any unnecessary distance. Living with Yuna was everything I had imagined and yet completely different. She meticulously arranged the bookshelves alphabetically, while I threw in some flair and rearranged them by color because, honestly, it looked way cooler. She'd put them back in order, and I'd wait 3 days before switching them up again. We finally struck a deal. The living room would be colorful chaos, while the study stayed alphabetically pristine. And we both pretended this wasn't an ongoing battle. In the kitchen, she was all about precise measurements and wrote down every recipe, adjustment in a tiny notebook. Meanwhile, I was just winging it like a culinary daredevil. My food? Absolutely delicious. She grudgingly admitted it. I even have the voice memo to prove it. One evening, about 6 months after she moved back, I was lounging on our couch, lost in a book, while she was at her desk grading papers, that mechanical pencil tucked behind her ear, her bob perfectly in place, and her reading glasses perched on her nose like a scholarly superhero. I gazed at her in the warm lamplight, my mind drifting back to our adventures, a botanical garden, 2 iced coffees, and a fountain I never once glanced at. Then I thought about a hallway, papers scattered on the floor, and her hands on my shoulders. I thought about that library and the piece of paper that had sparked everything. Suddenly, I sprang into action. I dashed to the bedroom, grabbed the small box I'd been hiding in my sweater drawer for 3 weeks, waiting for the absolute perfect moment, and then second-guessing every moment that came my way. I returned to the living room, and there she was, still grading away, pencil flying, glasses on, completely absorbed. I stood in front of her desk, heart pounding like a drum. She looked up and I dropped to one knee. Her pencil stopped mid-air. "I've loved you since before I knew what to do with it," I declared, voice shaking with excitement. "You make me better at everything. You fixed my hair on our first date, remembered my coffee order, and walked into me on purpose in a hallway. I want to walk into you on purpose for the rest of my life." She just stared at me, eyes wide, and I opened the box, revealing the ring. She slowly removed her glasses, and I could feel the tension crackling in the air. "Joy, Yuna," I said, my heart racing. "Will you marry me?" She was silent for 4 seconds. 4 eternally long seconds. Then she broke the silence with, "You keep rearranging my bookshelves." "I know," I replied, heart in my throat. "The color system makes no logical sense," she quipped. "I know," I said, grinning, and then she said the magic word, "yes." I slipped the ring onto her finger, and she gazed at it for what felt like an eternity before looking back at me, still kneeling on the floor, and whispered softly, "It's beautiful." "So are you," I replied, and she got up from her chair, sat down in front of me, and kissed me like the world had melted away. That grading? Yeah, it didn't get finished that night. We tied the knot on a glorious Saturday in October, when the leaves were painting the world in vibrant hues, and the sunlight was as warm as a freshly baked cookie. Sumin, my wild and wonderful maid of honor, was a total emotional wreck, sobbing through the whole ceremony while throwing me these chaotic, encouraging faces from across the aisle that had me in stitches. I adored her for it every damn minute. Then there was Yuna, striding toward me like a radiant goddess, embodying every good thing I'd ever dreamed of. And for a solid 10 seconds, I completely blanked on my vows before they came rushing back like a tidal wave. Her vows, pure poetry, flawless and precise. When she hit that part about the hallway, I burst into laughter through tears, and she shot me that real smile, the one that was exclusively mine, making everything else in that room fade into oblivion. We danced and she led like a queen. I just surrendered to the magic of the moment. Sumin's speech was a riot, hilarious and slightly embarrassing, culminating in her revealing a group chat from 4 years back where she had predicted Arya was head over heels for her rival, while the rest of us were blissfully oblivious. The whole crowd erupted in laughter, while I buried my face in my hands. And Yuna? She laughed the loudest. What a traitor. I married a traitor. The love of my life is a traitor. Fast forward 3 years post-wedding, Yuna strutted home from university on a Tuesday evening, tossed her bag down, plopped herself at the kitchen table, and shot me a look that screamed, "Something's up." I asked, "What's wrong?" She shot back, "Nothing is wrong." I countered with, "You have a face," to which she replied, "I always have a face. This is my face." I slid into the chair across from her, and she slid something across the table. Just like our usual library visits, just like old times. It was a tiny white stick. I gawked at it, then at her. She grinned and said, "Surprise." I was speechless for a full 30 seconds, then managed to stammer, "Yuna." She simply said, "I know," and then I blurted out, "We're having a baby." To which she replied, "Apparently so." I leaped up, wrapped my arms around her from behind, burying my face in her hair, which smelled like vanilla and a hint of floral bliss, just like that unforgettable day in the kitchen years ago when everything almost happened, before the pasta boiled over like our excitement. She placed her hands over mine, and we stayed like that for what felt like an eternity. Our daughter made her grand entrance on a Wednesday morning in April, boasting Yuna's delicate ivory skin and my deep brown eyes, plus a hefty dose of both our stubbornness, which we quickly discovered just 4 days into her life, and trust me, it was a wild ride we never stopped experiencing. We named her Hawan, which means a garden of the sun. Yuna cried in the delivery room, then denied it afterward, but I've got the video evidence stashed away in a super secure spot, just saying. At 4, Hawan lined up all her stuffed animals in perfect alphabetical order, and I exchanged glances with Yuna across the room. Her expression said, "She gets that from me," and I mouthed obviously, and we both burst into silent laughter because Hawan was dead serious. About her plushy organization and interruptions? Not happening. 2 years after Hawan, our son Jiho arrived, sporting my golden brown skin and Yuna's piercing eyes. Along with my stubbornness, Yuna called it poetic justice. I called it downright unfair, while Huan, at 2, declared, "Too loud, I'm sleeping." Spoiler alert. She was wide awake and just loved being the boss. On those rare evenings when both kids finally conked out and the apartment was blissfully quiet, Yuna and I would snuggle on the couch together, her feet tucked under my legs, her grading papers in her lap, my book in hand. The warm glow of the lamp surrounding us, and I'd find myself reminiscing about that first-year classroom and the girl who flat out refused to sit still. I'd think about hallways, scattered papers, coffee cups, and her hands resting on my shoulders. I'd remember 2 years of playful pretending and one library that changed everything with a single, profound sentence. "Stop pretending, this is just competition." I'd catch her in the lamplight, that mechanical pencil tucked behind her ear, reading glasses perched on her nose, a tiny smile dancing at the corner of her mouth as she read something captivating. She'd look up and catch me staring. "Stop staring," she'd say. "Absolutely not," I'd retort, unable to tear my gaze away. She'd shake her head, but that smile would only grow wider as she reached over, grabbing my hand without even glancing. And I held on tight, because some things, you just know you're always going to hold on to.